West Vermont Supervisory Union Board of Directors meeting to order at 5:31. Scott is not here, so bear with me as I navigate through. First item on the agenda is public comments. Do you have anybody here with comments?
No one here electronically. I don't know if anyone in the room, a member of the public here, but they don't want to speak. Richard is not. Oh, Richard is here. Yep.
Okay. So the next on the agenda is finance, which is the treasurer's report dated August 23. We need a motion to accept the report. Okay. Susan and Leon. Any discussion on the treasurer's report? With only 2 months in, there's not a lot there. Okay, all those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nothing under operations. Under policies, we have 2 policies to be warned. They were posted. We have the dress code policy revisions and the personal use of wireless communication. And Leon, do you want to, are you still on the policy committee?
He's
never coming on. It's a life sentence.
I will, the Ray don't want to explain it. So,
Ray, you're on the policy committee?
okay, so.
They seem pretty self-explanatory.
Well,
Pretty much a wholesale change.
except for the public may not know all the things. So basically, those at least a lot of work went together this summer in terms of policy committees by the administrations, SVSU and the schools and the districts to talk about the various policies and procedures and so forth along this line. So a lot of information came down in terms of the policy meeting. For policy number 5080, dress code, took a consolidation of information as opposed to all of the things because it needed to be updated. And so I'll just read real quick. SVSU is committed to creating a positive learning environment to all students. The purpose of the SVSU dress code is to promote a body positive environment while respecting the freedom of students to express their individuality. That's a lot. All students should express and should expect a safe learning environment, to feel free, welcome by upholding standards that foster a secure and equitable a secure environment. Equitable community. The purpose of the SVSU dress code is not to marginalization or express an expression of any group based on race, sex, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religious culture of various observance, and household income or body type size. The SVSU dress code is designed with the focus of teaching and learning environment. So it's a mouthful of things in there to take away all the other things that was in the policy that was actually spelled out and gave the new modern day, up to date version of what should be expected in light of the changes that, the morphological changes that we've gone through in time. And I think that's a good way to put that. That's the change there. All the other stuff was stricken out in the policy.
The expectation on that then that the individual building administrators have their own application of that policy, administrative regulations, procedures.
This is the policy piece.
Right.
Administrative review, there won't be individual ones, there will be administrators putting together the administrative regs piece for that.
Right. So that is still forthcoming. Once should this policy be adopted as it is, then the administrators,
Always.
Have their individual-
The regs to interpret that.
Okay.
And most of that the language was consolidated with administrators so that they have a working base because they were running into so many different versions and problems associated with what to do at this modern day and time and how to manage it and be legally bound and being able to enforce them. Yes.
so does this then, you said it reflects the administrator's work. Is this,
In terms of input for the policy.
because they did
Policy
put a
is
lot
for
of
the
work
board.
into
It's-
this.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have questions on that one?
I'm just recommending that we warn this policy as indicated.
I mean, the only thing that I'll speak up, there are some things that jump out. Like for me, it's, hoods and hats, I mean, it hides a lot of what can happen in the classroom. Whether it be hair pulled in front of the earbud, so they're listening their phone under the table. That's always a concern. You can't make good eye contact. You still walk from banks and you have to drop your hood and take off your hat, which is common, professional, standard. So, that's one that concerns me. And I think also is, some imagery, we wrote to cautious. There are kids who are coming to school with guns on their shirt. And is this allowable? And, we need some type of guidance, I think. I think looking forward, we have to figure out what that guidance is that still respects, body imagery. I mean, should girls have to wear shirts that come down to here or spaghetti straps? That's fine. It's up to them and their parents. I think there's some things that can push the boundaries to, make it scary for other kids.
Well, the policy address all those issues, so,
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a general discussion. I mean, I'm just saying that you have it. And I try not to do that right now. I'm trying to say that our job is to provide a policy that encompasses all of those things. Administrators are going to, put together the administrative regs part interpretation of this policy so that it'll do it. And that input is quite welcome, but I wouldn't want to entertain that at this board meeting. If you can provide that with them and them having input to interpret those things because they do address all those things.
So the details are up to the administrative regs.
That's what the protocol is, always. The policy is our responsibility, and it's general, encompass whatever we need to have, and the administrators are responsible for actually implementation of the policy by way of an administrative regs.
Would that be across all schools to be continual? Because if you come from Shasbury and can wear, a gun that says a shirt with guns on it, not Pownell. You go to the middle school where it's reflected negatively on, how are we going to address that?
We only have one SVSU,
Okay.
okay?
So all the
And so the information that I keep hearing is that what about this district and what about that? Everybody has these policies in terms of the policy procedure. This is a policy for SVSU and all its member districts. And all the member districts get to go and vote on in terms of wanting this policy.
Yeah.
And the procedures are written by the administrators after the policy has been, either at the same time, the policy has been won and adopted. And so those particular things you would expect if you have some difficulties with what's actually going day to day out there, they can manage those and not have to have the policy changed by administrative regs.
I think your question is one, though, maybe for follow-up, is when the administrative regulations are written, are they the same
across the board.
across all schools, or are they building specific? And if they're building specific, then you're calling in, then you have variations and inconsistencies potentially.
And they would say it.
Yeah.
The policy would show, the administrative regs will say that. We do have something for middle school or high school, or maybe for elementary school. You
It's
gotta
reflected
expect
in
that.
administrative regs, as Leon explains, that there are,
Yeah.
not on every policy, but on current policies, there's variations in attendance too.
Right.
Over grade levels, so.
So for us tonight, this is warning the policy.
Correct.
And then Leon, maybe, well, I don't know just understanding sort of how the administrative regulations get written and to loop the board back in on what those are when that time comes. But first we need to get the policy passed. So first we have to get it warned.
Warren,
Do we have a motion to warn this
Yes.
policy number
So,
5080? Great. Warren and seconded.
5080.
Is there any more discussion? If not, we'll take a vote on the 5080 warning of dress code policy. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Anyone opposed?
I abstain.
Abstention? Okay. One abstention. The next one is personal use of wireless communication, also a warning of policy number 5084.
This policy, if I may, I could explain
That'd be
things
great.
here in this column. The first thing, there was some strikeouts in terms of updates in this particular policy. But the biggest thing in here is that, again, there has been so many changes in technology, and I said morphological changes over time, that this policy now comes up to date to encompass all of those things. And so a definition in section 2 of wireless communication. Wireless communication is a type of data communication that is performed and delivered wirelessly. This is a broad term that incorporates all procedures and forms of connecting and communicating between two or more devices using a wireless signal through wireless communication technology and device. And then it goes on, just the source is Technopedia. And that particular, if I get this right, Technopedia is a group of people, the best in the industry and so forth, that constantly look at what it is that need to be addressed when it comes to wireless communication and so forth. And so this covers all forms of communication compared to what we were trying to do out here in the past. We were putting in cell phones. Somebody says, I want a laptop, I want this, and I want this. This addresses all of that in the policy. And again, any specifics that needed to come behind this policy will be in the form of administrative regs.
Okay.
So I'll, in terms, recommend that we warn policy number 5084, personal use of wireless communication, as indicated.
Have a motion.
I make the motion.
the second the motion.
Technically, we should have our motion and then have our discussion.
I
But we have our
I said I
discussion
made a
and then our motion.
I moved it.
I know, but we already talked about it. Is there any further discussion? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions?
I think it should be pointed out that at the individual board level, these can be discussed when they're warned there.
Correct.
Because that's an appropriate location for people with individual school districts to make their opinions.
Yeah, my, on policy development, just to always want to make sure that the administrators are looped in, and not just looped in, but they're a critical part of development of the policies and identifying the policies that need to be revised. So as long as they're on the front end of this and not on the back end of this, that seems.
That was my opening statement, that when I came to introduce what took place over the summer
Yeah, no, I know there was a lot of,
But in the policy section here, the next meeting is not gonna be October, it'll be November. But, there seemed to be a lacking of the participation of the district board members to attend these meetings. So I'm raising it here. We need the input from the boards and develop this, this policy. So, every board is supposed to at least have 2 members supplied to the policy committee. And they know who they are in terms of being lacking, in terms of showing up and addressing these issues. Because when I hear what I'm hearing here, a lot of that should be discussed, like Ray indicated, at the developmental stage and then back at the district so that we can just move smoothly when it gets to this point. And so I would encourage more participation at the developmental phase.
Moving on our agenda, we have the consent agenda, which is minutes, warrants, leaves of absence, retirements, resignations, and nominations.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Celeste. Hi, Celeste and Susan. Any discussion on the items included in that packet?
I do have, once you pass the consent agenda, I do have warrant to pass around for signature.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I think we have full acceptance. Superintendent's report.
May I make one?
Yes.
I did send a couple of notes on the minutes to Richard Ball, but they're not, not really material, just phrasing in one case. In one case, I thought he left something out about the discussion at my meeting, but it's not material to
Okay.
our passing.
Okay.
Just
Mr. Bolton.
Good evening. Joining us by Zoom this evening is Michael Taylor. Michael is the new SVSU Equity Coordinator. Michael joined us. He'll be 3 weeks on the job tomorrow. So Michael, why don't you introduce yourself to the board, and he's also going to give you a little on his background. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm honored to be here today as the Equity Coordinator for SVSU. And as the Equity Coordinator, my foremost goal is to create an inclusive and equitable environment where every student feels valued, supported, and empowered to succeed. I believe that education is the foundation of social change, and by actively addressing systemic inequities, we can shape a future that is fair and just for all. My career background has been in activism, advocacy, and educating members of the public and private sectors on issues relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion. My intent over the next few weeks is to focus on open lines of communication and building relationships with the schools and stakeholders so we can collectively identify and address the barriers that impede equitable outcomes. I'm eager to listen to your perspectives, learn from your experiences, and work together to create meaningful change. As a part of my entry into this role, I created an equity coordinator entry plan for the first 3 to 6 months, and I can share some of that with you today. So a big focus is on obviously building relationships with the schools, the administrators, and learning a lot about SVSU culture. A lot of my time is also spent on learning about relevant policies such as HHB, Title IX, and equity-related policies. Over the next month or so, I'll be conducting a thorough assessment of equity-related data and also developing an equity action plan for each individual school based off of data and feedback. And that's a little about me, and thank you so much, Jim, for allowing me to talk today.
Does the board have any questions for Michael this evening?
Welcome, Michael.
Yes. I have, Michael and I have done tours of every school in the district. Other than we still have to get to Beach Street and Congress Street, but we have done Fisher and Arlington Memorial, Mount Anthony Middle and High School. Bennington Elementary, Jacksbury Elementary, Pownell Elementary, Woodford, and Monument. I think I got them all. So not only did Michael meet the principal at each school, but who the principal designated as their contact person for equity. One thing that I've stressed with Michael that I want to see developed is the educational piece that, that the equity coordinators not just use as the first responder. It's an important part of the role, but not just as the first responder. The issues of equities and assist our principals with. It's a critical part that this position has grown into, but particularly elementary schools to develop curriculum and resources for our schools to use on the topic of equity. I think it's fitting that we have an early educator in the room with us tonight, our director of early education, because I truly believe that that's where we have to focus our efforts to change culture at that level as much as we can. And Michael assured me that that is also something he strongly believes in. You heard him say that he's developing equity plans tailored for each individual school. The other thing that I've asked for him is create an equity calendar. Like you see, we do have a banner out in the hallway today for Hispanic Heritage Month. We've done a few others, but not enough. We need to recognize all cultures and all. So I've asked him to develop a calendar, as I said, that can help us as we frame our recognitions. So looking forward to having Michael here. Like I said, 3 weeks tomorrow. I told him he's not going to get it all done in the first month. So
Really?
thank you, Michael.
So I was gonna say, as part of what the coordinator does is, in addition to the policies, all of our policies will be run through for the coordinator to review them. It's at least read them to make sure they're conforming to what they need to be conforming to in terms of equity. So that's one of the reasons we're not having a policy meeting next month in October. We skipped the next month to November because we wanted to give Michael a chance to see.
And our attorney asked for more time for her review too. So,
Right.
and we said, well, that works well because
Right.
Michael is still onboarding with us and so needs a little time to digest it all. Anyone else for a comment or a question to Michael? Mike, thank you for joining us then. So in your individual board meetings this month, you've seen us do the recovery pillar for academic achievement. So for the SU board tonight, we invited the Director of Early Education Programs, Megan Mescap, to come and present to you how the recovery pillar is highlighted with early education. So Megan I saw her presentation earlier today. I think it's enlightening. So I'm going to turn this portion of the meeting over to Megan.
Thank you. Do we have the handout to pass around copies to those folks who are here?
That's for her.
Yeah, I didn't just make a copy for you.
Well,
So I do have some data to present and we can, I'll send these around so folks can look at the numbers. And then this can go into the minutes for future reference. So thank you everybody for inviting me and letting me join you tonight at this meeting.
Is that something that can be shared with our remote participants?
can you put it up on the screen if I share the screen with you?
Perfect. I'm not logged into Zoom,
So,
but I
You have
did
the
share
link?
the document with you.
yeah, I'll pull it up with this one.
Do you have your drive open? Sorry, technology gets the best of you every single time. Every single time. What I'm gonna do is, do you want me to resend you this link really quickly?
Or you want to just log into the meeting?
Maybe you send me the Zoom. Who's on first?
Yeah. Let's take a little pause.
Yeah, we'll take a pause for a second. Let's get this technology. Sure. Just label. Here, let me just check that I shared it with you. I think I did. Here, I'm doing.
I don't need that. I just have a paper copy of the meeting.
Here, send. It is labeled early ed board presentation. There it is. All right.
Thank you for
Sorry.
navigating that.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet, but we're getting really close.
Progress is being made.
Progress is being made. It should be on the screen shortly. And hopefully this aligns some with the, as Mr. Culkeen said, aligns with some of the presentations you all saw in your individual board meetings this month regarding academic progress and things like that. It's a little different. Things are always a little different in preschool. You- Oh, okay.
This.
Laura was here, she would be sweating so hard.
No, I don't usually do this.
We could probably also send it to Jess and Celeste.
But then Richard will want to see it too. So. It's funny.
What if you click files there, the snack thing, I don't know. No, okay, why don't we do this, why don't I, just join the Zoom, I need the meeting.
Practice today, we just didn't
Didn't
practice
this part. So I can give a little bit of background information while we're doing this. So there's I won't get into the stats too much just yet, but for frame of reference, in public pre-K in the state of Vermont, we actually use a statewide assessment tool, and it's actually we've been using the same statewide assessment tool for at least 12, if not going on 15 years. So there is somewhere sitting out there a fair amount of longitudinal data about student progress and outcomes in preschool. It's called Teaching Strategies Gold. It is a observation-based assessment system in which classroom teachers and other folks who work in the classroom with the students take observations over a period of time leading up to a kind of marking period end, which for us is statewide in early December and in June. What the teachers do is they take those observations and then kind of compare them against.
All right, you should be able to share. Just let you share. Just gotta mute your microphone.
Compare them against a scale that they, a 7-point scale. And that's how we collect that information. So let me.
I want, while she's doing that, one thing that impressed me today in today's presentation is that the measurement tool for early education has been consistent for 20 years.
Yeah, at least. I mean, it's.
What amazed Laura was also part of the preparation this morning. We can't say that with, if you were present when we were going around to the individual board meetings this
They
month.
change all the time.
Yeah, we're on the third testing tool in my time here, so.
Yeah, and it has been web-based for a very long time. Prior to that, it actually was a pen and paper system, based off of the idea of collecting a portfolio on students and then kind of assessing the entire portfolio and seeing where they are. So our assessments are looking at where students are performing in 6 developmental domains: social, emotional, physical, which includes both gross and fine motor skills. So how you can hold a pencil and how you can throw a ball, or maybe balance on a balance beam. Language, which in this case is really specifically looking at your communication and receptive language skills, understand directions and process those kinds of things. Cognitive skills are really looking at problem solving more than anything else, because they also break out literacy and mathematics as those pre-academic skills. So a little bit of background also on, the population of students that we're looking at here. This is last school year across the SVSU, we had 348 at some point in time preschool students enrolled, and that includes all of our the entire area, including students who attend at Fisher Elementary and attend at both our Molly Stark and Division Street classrooms, as well as our partnership programs across the community. Of those partnership programs, we had 16 different classrooms. Some sites have multiple classrooms, like Bennington County Head Start. Some sites have 1 classroom, and some of those classrooms and sites this year were located outside the SVSU as far as their location. But the way public pre-K is written in the state of Vermont, you can partner outside of your district wall, boundaries, as long as programs meet the qualifications. Very, very few do that. It's approximately out of that 348, 273 of those students were attending partner classrooms. So that's backing out kids who are at Fisher Elementary and are at Molly Stark and our programs at Division Street. And I think also notable here is that about 110 of these students were students that were identified and getting services through an IEP, which often is the driver for why students come to preschool, because they can access those services as well as other facets of it. But in reality, actually, last year, we identified, I think it was somewhere between 20 and 25 additional students because they were in preschool and because their teachers brought a concern. And this was a way, it's kind of a way of identifying and child find practices by having kids come in the door as a preschool student and then teachers saying, we've looked at where you are and we have some things and some questions. So that was a snapshot of last school year. It's looking like it'll be pretty similar this school year. And those numbers, the participation in preschool has not gone down. It did dip slightly during the pandemic, but what's really changed is the number of students identified with a disability and receiving IEP services has grown. So the growth data that is broken out by 3-year-old and 4-year-old students, so this is listed here, is looking at those areas of development, and it's looking at whether or not between this December checkpoint and this June checkpoint, students made what they consider meeting a growth range. So in this case, they showed a level of growth which was greater than 25%. Students who didn't make at least 25% growth are noted as being below the growth range. One of the things that I find notable here, and I'll try to scroll for the screen, it's a little hard because it's a little type is a little big, is we saw greater growth with our 4-year-old students, which is, I don't have an exact reason why, but I think one of the things that our team reflected on looking at the data is often children attend preschool for the 2 years. A lot of our students attend for 2 years. And many of them, of those students that attend for 2 years, attend in the same location, if not the same classroom. So they have the benefit of having established relationships, understanding routines and expectations, and they have that opportunity to spend their first year getting used to what's happening and spend their second year potentially making a little bit more growth and making a little bit more progress. I think, that's a speculation, but to me, it aligns with what I see with students and the ability for students to develop a really close relationship within their preschool community with not just their classmates, but often their teachers. So that is something of note. And then on the second page, I'm going to scroll down. This is a little bit easier probably to see on the screen. I'm able to zoom my screen a little bit smaller because print is a little small. But this is looking at, and I'm going to do it just so maybe we can squeeze it all in there. This is looking at what the teaching strategy school calls widely held expectations. So this is basically saying, are you on target for your age range? And this is looking at the students in both the fall and the spring who are meeting or exceeding what is considered the widely held expectation. As you can see, there is growth, which we showed in the chart up above. There is growth in all of the domains at various levels. And it's actually really remarkable how many students are exceeding what is considered the widely held expectation in a lot of areas. But particularly what I reflected on, and I think aligns a lot what we are all reflecting on across the SVSU is, particularly in the 4-year-old students, looking at literacy and math and kind of how far we have to go still to get more kids that are not falling below those widely held expectations in that area. Over the last 3 or 4 years, kind of started just before the pandemic, I've been working with Laura Boudreau and the curriculum office to offer professional learning in a lot of literacy and language areas. And we've been expanding that and offering that more and more to the people who work not just for the SVSU or our other schools, but working with the partners in the community as well and giving them those professional learning opportunities, which I think will hopefully pay off over time. And a lot of that is really focusing on, one, increasing students' ability to communicate and respond to communication, but also starting to really explore literacy and all of those literacy concepts. We are now kind of also now layering in math, and we'll be trying the same sort of approach, aligning with district-wide math curricula and other professional learning strategies that also are used at the elementary school and through all the, probably up through middle school. I'm not a curriculum expert when it comes to older children, I'm hoping that will also help us kind of look at some of those math areas and how we can most prepare children to have the most foundational things that they need to be successful in kindergarten, because that's ultimately what our goal is at every point, is to make that transition and make children most successful when they hit elementary school. I think I covered most of it. Just down at the bottom, there are just some explanations of some of those kind of factoids that I opened with, if, hopefully to answer some of the questions about the terminology. And I'm happy to answer questions. Board. Always try.
I was curious, of the 348, do we have any idea what that represents in our population that's actually enrolled in pre-K programs?
So it's hard to get an exact number. So you're asking how many students access pre-K versus how many students are eligible and don't access pre-K.
Yeah, and my second piece, which is probably getting at the same thing, is how many students do we have that come into kindergarten who have had no pre-K?
Right, so that's probably the only way we can really get that number.
Yeah.
Because although there is a unique set of the population, the pre-K population, who's not counted here, who is getting a pre-K education prior to kindergarten, if they matriculate into our SVSU schools, and those are the students attending pre-K at Grace Christian and Sacred Heart. They both offer robust pre-K programs that in theory probably align pretty closely to what we offer, but because there's been right now, the way that the law is still written, we're not partnering with parochial programs. So that's probably in each site 20 or so kiddos. And then I would say, in my experience, it varies year to year, but we could figure that out, how many kids show up at kindergarten and enroll in kindergarten and had not
I
attended
think it's an
anywhere.
excellent question. I'm curious myself, so. I made
Yeah,
a
like
note that we're gonna
anecdotally, like
See if we can track that back.
it's a handful. I mean, and it varies from year to, it
We
definitely
do, and we
varies.
do like, without any question, beginning of every school year, our registrars are spreading kids that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a handful of how many are in our current kindergarten class across all elementary, if I understand your question. right,
Yeah,
Has never been either in a partner preschool or one of our own
Yeah.
preschool. And we probably
I
should
mean-
identify who went to one that isn't even as
Right,
our.
yes.
Yeah.
And if I had to say off the top of my head, I think at least 80% of the kindergartners have. Like it's
Some.
had some preschool education. It is by far the majority. It is definitely the minority that haven't, but it would be interesting to see how that ties to other outcomes on a school by school basis, or if we have a big bubble of kids who aren't. I think we've had more since the pandemic who haven't than maybe probably
Yeah.
before. And because the only other way we could kind of look at it is compare, like, go back and look at an enrollment from a prior school year of pre-K students versus maybe a first grade
yeah,
class.
I mean,
You know,
I
like,
don't
it would,
want to send anyone on a wild goose chase, but it is kind
No,
of,
it's.
because it impacts
Mhm.
instruction
Yep.
all the way through. If you're talking about 3 and 4-year-olds seeing progress, having kids come in without that instruction impacts what those
100%.
elementary teachers can do. And then just out of curiosity, the legislation that's passed hopefully will expand opportunities and resources for more children to access.
Yes, I am waiting on bated breath to see what the new, so for those of you who maybe, I don't know how aware, there was Act 76 was passed last spring, which is kind of being touted in the public as the child care bill. And a lot of it, a significant portion of the bill is around public funding for private childcare under expanding childcare subsidy programming. But another little caveat in the whole thing is around public pre-K education and how the state should move forward to continue to implement public pre-K. So there is a study group working right now to make recommendations to the legislature about those specifics. And a lot of the conversation is around, particularly for 4-year-old children, expanding the amount of hours that they're getting in public pre-K education. And how that, and then how will that be done? Will that continue to be done in a mixed delivery model like we do now? Or would it be something that would be solely the responsibility of public schools to provide? And even to the point of, is it solely the responsibility of public schools, and then public schools have the ability to contract if they want? So there's different pieces to it. I had a nice conversation with Jeff Francis about it last Thursday. So I am definitely watching because it is going to dramatically impact our region.
Your world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leanne, did you have a question?
When we talk about partnering and non-partnering, what about the home school students? Are they counted in here? Because a lot of adults prefer to teach their own kids at an earlier age.
Yep.
And where they get the information from is whether we are considering them as partners or non-partners or what.
Yeah, so not really. We have had a so it's interesting about when you're preschool age, you can't really be considered a homeschool student because there
They're
isn't
not
a,
required.
they're not required to
Until
go.
they're 6 years old.
Yeah. However, that being said, every year we do have a small number of IEP students who receive IEP services and their parents opt not to also enroll them in pre-K. And
Because
we,
after 3, they're eligible for IEP services, regardless if they're enrolled
yes,
in a preschool education program.
yes. So we do have some families that choose to do the majority of their education and experience at home. And then, but their child is eligible for IEP services. We do try to align those services with the things that kids need to work on to be ready for school. So we often, and actually I'm gonna point to Sherry Barber who's in the room because she does a lot of these, we'll create small social groups and opportunities that are kind of school-like for parents, because the reality is that you, at any point, you may not be choosing to send your child to school right now, but at some point you may be choosing to send your child to school, and we need to try to get everybody ready for school as much as we can.
Thank you, Megan, for doing such important work. Megan mentioned Jeff Francis. Jeff Francis is the executive director of the Vermont Superintendent's Association. I was going to mention him too as part of my report, but I'll get to that, but I want to stay on the agenda first. So the New England School Development Study is the next on the agenda. The chair asked that that be put on there. It really is pertains to the elementary school districts other than Fisher. The Union Elementary School District contracted at my recommendation with the New England School Development Council to do a study on the alignment of the elementary schools. So when I mean alignment, it's called the best use of educational facility studies. They're going to look at population capacity to demographic studies to see what projected enrollment is going to be in 5 years. We used to have a gentleman who did those studies for the SU who would give us 1-year projections. Thank you, Megan. 1-year projection, 5-year projection, and 10-year projection, but always told us 10-year was the best guess. The more accurate was a 5-year enrollment study. So that's. Well, then the other thing that I want them to look at is how we use our elementary schools. We currently run every elementary school with the same grade configuration. Do we continue with that? Do we change? Like there's been some proposals about making one of the schools a early childhood center. There's been some about making one a magnet school that focuses on STEM studies. Some of this is potentially controversial. That's why I, as superintendent, want a third party making those recommendations. The process will be, they'll do, and most of this will be done by Zoom. They will meet with town officials. They will meet with the administrators, a focus group to expand on what I said. I had to give them some ideas to frame it so they could give us a cost estimate, which is under $30,000. I think it was $27,000 that the board voted approved to spend on this. And then there'll be other stakeholder groups that they will interview to get input, like whether it's a board stakeholder group and I imagine a community stakeholder group too that will give input to. Then they'll come back with a proposal that the board is. I hope we then have serious discussions of what comes from that. So that's what that references. It's not particular to just to the SU, but many of you are also part of boards over here back because MAU is also part of the discussion because the question is, why are Bennington 6th graders at the middle school and nobody else is? Do we continue with that model? Do we reverse it and all 6th graders stay at the elementary schools, or do all 6th graders come to, especially now that we're a unified elementary district, are you doing one grade alignment different just for one town? Maybe that's fine. Maybe everyone's happy with that, but I think it needs to be visited and discussed. What else I'd like to, so Jeff Francis, as I said, the executive director of the Vermont Superintendent's Association, sent us a survey, the superintendent's a survey about the appointment of the next Secretary of Education. So the the Agency of Education has announced that they're going to start doing this. Remember, Dan French, the Secretary of Education, resigned a while, I don't know, before the summer, maybe even, yeah. So, and Heather Boucher, who is the Associate Director, has been the Interim Director of Education, Secretary of Education. So they're beginning the process for that. We were sent a survey, the superintendents, about what attributes we would like to see in the next secretary. I mentioned it to you because I heard that the School Board Association is going to do a similar survey, so you may want to be looking at your emails to see if that does come to you. Speaking of the SVSU, the VSSA, the Vermont Superintendents Association and the Vermont School Board Association, and the Vermont Principals Association, sponsored an inaugural Women in Leadership Conference on September 15th up at Killington. So I enrolled all the directors and assistant superintendent that identify as female. I'm trying to use the right phrase there, who identify as female. I'm not to attend this conference. It was an all-day event, and it was well attended. It was well received. It had, keynote speakers and really talked about the role of women in leadership. So I applaud those two organizations for sponsoring that, and how well it was attended, and by staff members here, administrators here at the SVSU. Speaking of conferences, it is still time if you would like to register for the Vermont Superintendents Association, Vermont School Board Association Joint Conference, October 26th and October 22nd. In fact, one of the board members reached out to Amy today to get themselves registered. It is still possible to do that. So if you would like to go, please reach out to Amy and she will get you registered to attend. That's a Thursday and Friday. Some people will go up on Wednesday night. If you need a room, we can arrange that for you too. So that is September 26th and 27th at Lake Maury.
The agenda looks really good. Maybe think about it when you're talking about the agenda. It looks like really good.
The budget process has begun. Individual principal meetings start next week with the Director of Finance, and there'll be at least one other central office administrator in those meetings as they begin their request for budget. So even though we're the last week of September, it has started.
I think we just finished.
It does. There are, and then there are budget challenges. I've mentioned this. I want to continue to mention this. There are 16 positions that are funded by ESSER funds in all our budgets. I think I said I thought it was 20, but I got an accurate count from HR this week. It is 16 positions that we have to analyze and see, how many of those we can absorb into either open existing positions, which we do have, and how many can go into the budget, which that figure roughly is $1 million for all those positions to go into the budget. And the other budget challenge is October 23rd, we begin negotiations with the Teachers Association and the support staff. As a reminder, they joined together. They no longer are two separate unions. They are one, and they've indicated they want to negotiate as one. So there'll be less meetings, but there'll be a lot more to discuss. And that begins October 23rd. And that meeting will probably be to begin to set ground rules and to set future meeting dates. Just getting, the association has indicated that they would prefer to meet on Mondays, this round of negotiations, which works for me because it's typically no one else is meeting on a Monday night. So, but that will be.
Except policy committee.
Except policy, right. That will be impacting, because the other thing that I can, in these principal meetings, so 16 ESSER positions, some type of negotiated raise is on the table. Not to mention the request for new positions by principals and directors that always happens in the budget season. I anticipate requests for help with HHB, which is taking so much more time, administrator's time. You created a position, or actually, Anthony created a position in middle school for HHB. Things like that don't go unnoticed from other principals and say like, well, I need that assistance in my school. And continuing the struggles with student support, special and social, emotional, and behavior. So I anticipate in those rounds of meetings with principals, increase of that. All is going to add up to some very difficult discussions as we compile the numbers and get into, give you preliminary budgets towards December.
What's HHB?
Anything harassment?
Bullying, yes, sorry. I know, I talk to you all the time, stop using acronyms, I just did it, apologize. I think most of you got these at your individual meetings, but I brought them anyways. This is the new staff guide that we put together. It's been well received by our staff. It's also in the first speaker series. So I won't pass it out because I think all but maybe Ray didn't get one because
I'll take it.
okay. You're all,
I'll take one.
yeah, you're all welcome to them. And I'm a little disappointed that Scott isn't here tonight because he's been asking for this for a while. I have our first draft of our snapshot of what the SVSU looks like. And I say first stab at it because once you do something like this, well, I'm already getting suggestions from people saying to me, oh, why didn't you include this? Or like, wait, you know what we should have put on this is how many miles our school buses drive every day, or something like that. You know, it says fun facts, but you can't include everything in it. This will be something that when HR just did a job fair last week, this is something that they could have on the table. This is something that board members can have when you're having discussions. When we finally put this all in one place, it really is eye-opening. If you look all the way on the left, our annual operating cost is $94 million. This is a $94 million operation. You look down in the budget box, 85 million of that is the budgets that add up from all the districts, and then $8.7 million in grants, like title grants that we receive. So that's where the 94 comes from. If you look down below that blue box, awarded an additional $28 million in one-time COVID-related grants. Those have been spread over 3 years. So in actuality, what we are managing right now is over $100 million in spending every year, a monumental task. 976 employees in the SU. 691 students who are receiving student services, commonly known as special education, but we don't use that term. You see the amount of money we spend on professional learning, student demographics. How many buildings we own? 16 buildings owned by the member districts. So again, our first attempt at it, that's why we have a print date on the bottom. So if we update them, change them, put a supplemental, when we looked at other organizations, what they've done, a wide range of what type of information you put on this. But for me is, you look at over 5,000 purchase orders every year processed through finance. So then I look at that and I go, I wonder, Director of Finance and Operations is here so many late nights, 976 employees. I wonder what stress I'm putting on our HR director and his department. That's a lot to people. Our bi-weekly payroll was $1.6 million back into the economy. So that's all I have for you this evening. If you have any questions for me, feel free to share this. This is a public document.
So, one question, when did they open up the search for the agency of education? So the
Secretary of Education.
Secretary of Education.
Secretary of Education.
I'd have to go back and
How
look.
long is that window opening?
Been open for a while now.
Yeah, it's been, but I don't know when it's closed.
They said,
No, actually, I don't, read, I read that it's actually just open.
It's been, he's been gone a while.
He's been gone
Yeah.
for 6 months, but
Like I said, I'd have to go back and find the email. I just got the survey to fill out for it, announcing that they were beginning the search. For a long time, it just sat there. So
right.
So I don't-
There was no advertisement.
I have not seen an official job posting. I had the survey from the Vermont Superintendent's Association.
And then the question is, you know, I read somebody saying that the close date is only 11 days later after the announcement. I'm not sure if that's
Really?
true.
I wouldn't have the information.
Or
to speak
some
with
very
authority.
short date, which led this person to speculate that there was a fix.
The interim director, I
don't know.
I have not, I haven't heard.
No idea.
Yeah.
Because it is the appointment of the
Well, I hope that's not true, because then I would feel like I'm wasting my time filling out
Well,
a
yeah,
survey.
I asked that because, you know, if you're asked to, we're all asked to fill out surveys, you know, it's kind of pointless. It's not going to be useful.
Jim, on the snapshot, I think one piece, and I don't know how I would rather, is geographic data. You talk about how much land the SVSU owns and how many buildings, but
Spread of the district.
the spread of the district. Because that creates some real, you could look at this data and say your enrollment is comparable to another SU, but they're a smaller
Let me say,
geographic area.
the Massachusetts line in Pownell all the way up to the New York line in Sandgate, right? Yeah. How many square miles the district encompasses? or-
I just think it would be,
Yeah.
you know, an
We're gonna
approximate.
keep a
but-
running list as people give us, you know, other suggestions of what should be here, whether it develops to be a front and back or, but I would love, you know, more, see it like. The day this got back from the printer, I got an email from Holly saying, hey, you know how many miles we drive, our buses drive? I go like, a little late, Holly, but yeah, but maybe for the next one.
And I'm sure this was an incredible amount of work to pull the data. It's really helpful to have in this format.
For instance, on the buildings part, you could actually list the buildings, not just the oldest.
We do, you know, the visual of it, and, you know, spent a lot of time with Katie West, our public information coordinator on this. We want it to look like a fact sheet, and we want it to look like, you know, a quick read document. And
Yeah.
there's a little compromise of both, you know, because one draft had like maybe 3 or 4 bullets on it in bigger boxes, and then we shrunk them down and added more. Katie, in case you're listening at home, Katie and my administrative assistant, Amy, had a little running bet every morning about when I would come in the morning, what is Jim gonna change today? Because it'd be one of those 2:00 in the morning, that the size of our payroll was probably one of the last things that we added. And that's an average payroll, like, because you never get a straight answer, right? So I said to HR, what's the size of our payroll? Well, it depends what payroll you're talking about. You're talking about the June payroll with the lump sum? Or you're talking about So I said, give me an average number. And you know, to Renee, how many purchase recs finance handles was one of the other last things that I added. Again, from a late night, I wasn't sleeping well session. So I asked Renee, how many purchase recs do you think your department handles every? She goes, I'd feel confident saying 2,000 to 3,000. I said, all right, well, run the numbers and tell me. And in the past few years, it hasn't been anything less than 5,000. So she was handling more purchase recs, and I don't mean just her department handling over
How is that
5,000.
statistic gathered? Is that that as a running?
I think they could go into their budget and see how many, run a number and see how many they did.
So.
I didn't ask how they got it, but yeah.
What you don't want this to be is the statistical register in total. Because you could have that as a point that could be on the website, you could reference it.
This will go on the website, yeah. This will.
But no, I mean, a general statistical register might have, like the information I said, all the school buildings when they were built and additions and changes.
So what you're saying is like the online version could be more robust.
Right, you could have more robust information.
Well, as you see this, feel free to send me any other information you think would be a snippy little factoid for describing the SVSU.
So when were Arlington's buildings?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's not the original high school building, but the building has, I think, well, the original one burned. I don't know when the current one was built.
North Bennington's building dates from the original core of it from 1870.
Mm.
And additions in the 1890s and the 1930s and 1997. 98.
Any other questions? No? Questions?
Under the chair's report, Scott asked that I just update everybody on the superintendent evaluation process. Scott and I and Jim have met. The intention is so we have last year's evaluation that was presented to Jim, and it had some recommended goals in it. We didn't have Jim's feedback on that, so we used that as a starting point and have started down the path of trying to come up with a collaborative process so that Jim's input on what his goals are in line with what the board had identified as kind of priorities based off of the review. Jim also mentioned that the evaluation tool has changed. How many times?
I think I've only used the same tool twice in my.
So we're gonna try to, Jim's gonna bring the administrator's rubric that's used. We're gonna pull some information from the VSBA on some superintendent evaluation resources that they have, and hopefully come up with something that we can, nothing is set in stone, but something that everybody's comfortable with, that we can use going forward. So we've had one meeting, we kind of all left with our action items. Once the goals are set and the tool is finalized, then it goes to the committee. And then the committee kind of takes the process in using that tool to conduct the evaluation. So that's where that process is.
I would have one comment about that. I think the committee should determine the tools and take this on. In addition to, I mean, you know, what you're doing is fine, but I don't think it's a fait accompli by the time we organize the whole committee. What the process will be, that has to be the committee decision. Me. You understand me?
I understand.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we won't do it in a vacuum. The other thing, Jim, I guess this is my question. I don't know how to best approach this. I don't have a good sense of all of the different buildings. And if board members want to tour different school buildings, just to have a better grasp of how similar or different they are, what, if you could get back to us on.
Yeah,
how
let me
to
get
best
back to
approach
how that
would it be easier for the administrators if we set certain dates and we had a group kind of come through on a tour? Or would it be better if we did it? I don't want it to be an intrusion, but I think it would be really helpful.
thanks, everybody. daytime touring or after-hour touring?
I'm just looking for recommendations on how to best.
Yeah.
I've seen all the soccer fields. That's all I know.
Let me monitor that, and like what would be, best way to do that?
Are you doing during
Yeah.
when they have in-service days or something, when the children are in school?
You know,
Yeah.
if everyone's available during the day, right? So,
And I think just to kind of lay eyes in school and see what they look like.
Would it also be helpful to see what it looks like in school too, with students there? 'Cause I don't know what other schools look like either during instructional time.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't want it to be, it's not an intent to be intrusive. I mean, I started thinking about, because we had some renovations done in the schools in Arlington, and I'd like to go through and see the work, and so
Our
we've
plan
worked
for
it into
that
a
is
board
to-
meeting.
Before the next Arlington board meeting,
Yeah.
maybe like a half an hour earlier and
Yeah,
do the tour. I think is the plan on that.
but
So,
then it made me think, I don't really know, and although we don't make decisions at
I mean,
individual
the problem,
school
if we,
levels, it
if-
just would be,
if we go like to the union, what the Union Elementary Board used to, but no, I don't have any hold, well, I do have some hold.
Yeah, we used to.
We used to rotate where the meetings were held
Mhm.
in the pre-Zoom era. So, because the problem is not every school, no other building has this type of capability. So, going back to, we go back to rotate meetings, but then that would be the,
yeah, that's
Physical and placement.
logistics of that
right,
become
yeah.
complicated.
Because this works well for CAT TV, it works well for Richard, it works well for the public to join us and for board members who need that. And we have to, in Vermont, we have to offer, even before COVID, electronic option to attend a meeting. It's all because of physical distances in Vermont, it's always been an option, but it always previously had been call in by phone, and then the veteran board members can attest to how that really wasn't always working that well, didn't work that well. And we had the things that looked like the Star Trek
Yeah,
meeting on the, yeah, so, this is an excellent option, so maybe, something similar to what we did, with the bus tour for the opening day too,
Yeah.
something like that, that we,
a board
anybody,
bus tour.
anybody who wants to be, wants to come, so make it a little enjoyable too, so, well, I'll think about it and then I'll make
Okay.
a suggestion back to you at the next board meeting.
Okay, great. That was all on Scott's list, was the evaluation. Is there any other?
I mean, the only thing I'd probably ask Jim is like, seeing this data sheet is nice. Just the roles of some of the, like paraeducators, now there's so many different, interventionists and, just to kind of know what their general roles are for those jobs. We start going to all these different names and what they do is like, there's the paraeducators and there's the specialists and there's behavior specialists and intervention specialists, like what actually are their
So like a
jobs?
list of SVSU
Yeah, what are their
positions, yeah.
roles? Because we approve them, but I'm like, I don't know what their role is.
So like a mini synopsis from the description and the job description of each position without having to go through each and every individual job
Yeah.
description.
It's just like a little cheat sheet.
Mm.
That's the only thing I'd probably ask.
So you're asking if you think it should be on this at some point, or you want that as a
Just
separate
maybe
thing?
a separate, just for
Yeah.
board members, so they know
Yeah.
what the difference between a paraeducator versus an, intensive special needs specialist versus
Yeah.
a behavioral specialist. Figure out what that interpreter was though.
And name what they do.
They always should be one name before, now there are so many different names.
Name as to what they assign.
Yeah.
Make that the next project.
Oh, do we adjourn?
Unless there's any other business, we are complete. We can adjourn at 6:45.